This tutorial continues the Techno Fundamentals series. In the first video, More Than a Bassline, I started a track with a basic techno beat and synthesized a bass sound using Operator, which in a few quick moves developed from a deep sine wave sub-bass into a more powerful sound with a noisy edge. Now I'm moving on to a new element, this time using Live's analog instrument, along with some effects processing and real-time control to create a deceptively simple yet powerful and dynamic sound which will add a high level of energy and atmosphere to the track. The idea is to create a simple rhythm on a single pitch and then create movement and contrast by controlling the sound in real time. This one-note lead concept is a common element in techno, used in classics like Alarms by Jeff Mills, and also Christian Smith and I use the idea in our track Push Factor. Let's have a listen to the track that I've got together so far, and then we'll take a look at the instrument that we're going to build. So on track 1, I've got a drum rack that I built up with a few custom sounds that are included in the download for this, and I've got basic techno beat, kick drum, hi-hats, claps, snares, and then another variation where the kick drum drops out. So I've got some stuff to play with. And also on track 2, I added a shaker for a little extra layer of high-frequency percussion. And then there's the bass line from the first tutorial that I can play with if I need to. And finally on track 4, this is the instrument that we're going to make. There's an instrument rack with an analog and a few different effects inside, and I've got multiple parameters from analog assigned to macros in the instrument rack. All right, so let's start building our instrument rack. I'm making a new MIDI track. I like using key commands. Shift Command T is the fastest way to do it. And over in my instruments, double-click on analog to load up the default. Select that analog, and I'm going to use Command G to group that into an instrument rack. So this is just the basic default sound. Simple, sawtooth wave, bright, a little buzzy. Before I start really getting into the sound design, I want to create a simple rhythmic pattern on one note that fits with my bass line, that fits with the drums, and try to make the sound in context with the music. So let's get the drums going. Bass line. Get this one out of the way and focus on the new rack we're building. Now, which note do I pick? You can do this by ear. I could also just pick one of the notes I used in my bass line. It's an A sharp, there's a G, there's a B. Let's try an A sharp. Switch to my pencil tool, might be a little bit easier to get a rhythm in quickly. And I want to create a simple, a little bit offbeat, syncopated kind of a rhythm that fits with the way the bass is grooving. That could work. Maybe I'll just do that at the end. That's it. It could be that simple. If you want to do something a little busier, I could try that. I think for now I'm going to keep it simple. Maybe I'll come back to this idea later though, and switch back to my mouse pointer, select those tracks and hit 0 to mute the notes, and we'll just concentrate on this basic one-note syncopated pattern. Now, I mentioned macros before, and what I want to do is set things up so I'm using both oscillators, and I'm going to map each parameter of each envelope to macros so I can control the shape of those envelopes simultaneously. And the envelope is really where you want to start to put together the overall shape of your sound. So in the amp 1 section, what I want to do is map the attack, decay, sustain, and release, each to its own macro in the instrument rack. And you can view those macros by clicking on the Show Hide Macro control. And I can either go into macro mapping mode by clicking Map, and then click on one of the highlighted parameters to assign it. Also, There's a shortcut, which I use all the time, and that is right-click on the parameter you want to assign and select in that pop-up menu the macro that you want to map it to. Before I start mapping these, it can be a little bit confusing to remember which macro that you're assigning to. It can be very helpful to name the macros first. So let me go to macro 5, select that, hit Command R, and then type attack. Then macro 6, I'm using tab to switch over to the next macro, will be decay. Macro 6 is sustain, and macro 8 is release. Now let's start assigning the parameters in analog. So amp 1, attack, right click, map to attack. Decay, sustain, and release. Now the sound just disappeared. That's because these macros are all down at 0. So it brought all those parameters down. If I want to get my sound back, I'm going to increase the decay back to about where it was, 500 or 600, and then also bring the release up to about the same. Now let's get the second oscillator going. Oscillator 2's on. You can hear that it sounds a little phasey now. There's a sort of a higher overtone. Right now, both oscillators are routed to the same amp. Right there, you've got the oscillator balance. What we want to do is get oscillator 1 routed to filter 1, and oscillator 2 routed to filter 2. Now, right now, filter 2 and amp 2 are off. The way the routing works, you have to turn on the amp in order to hear what's going through filter 2. So let's turn on amp 2. Now we can hear amp 1 and amp 2, and both of these oscillators mix together. And now what I can do is go in and assign the envelopes for amp 2. Now let's get some other parameters going that will shape the tone and the timbre of the sound. I'm going to turn on filter 1 and filter 2, set both of them to low pass 24. That's going to be a steeper cutoff. And I want to add macro assignments for the frequency and the resonance of both of these filters to the same knob. So, okay, let's name those. Frequency and resonance. And then I'll go ahead, right click, filter 1 frequency and resonance. Right click, filter 2 frequency and resonance. Sound disappeared again. That's because the frequency cutoff is all the way down at 30 Hertz. It's cutting all frequencies above that out. All I have to do is bring the frequency cutoff back up. Bringing up the resonance is going to accentuate the frequencies around where the cutoff is set. I also want to get some movement in the tone, and I will do that by modulating the filter frequency with the filter envelopes. And I'm going to also assign those same attack, decay, and sustain release parameters for the filter envelopes to the same macros in the instrument rack. And release. Switch over to filter 2. It's real fast doing the right click. So the envelopes are assigned, but we're not hearing the filter frequency change. You have to set an amount for the envelope to change the frequency. And that's down here where it says frequency mod, you've got an envelope amount. As soon as I bring this up, we're going to hear the frequency get higher and then sweep down with the shape of the envelope. And right now that's just on one channel on filter 2. I also want to map the same parameter for both filter 1 and filter 2 to a macro in the instrument rack. Right click on the envelope in the freq mod section for filter 2 and map that to macro 3. Live will automatically name the macros to the parameter you've assigned to it, Once you start assigning more parameters to the same macro, it goes back to the generic macro number. So that's why we renamed it to start with, to keep things clear. And Command R, rename to Freak Mod Envelope. Now, the envelope range is both positive and negative. When it's positive, the frequency is sweeping up when the envelope goes up. If it's negative, it's going to go the opposite direction that the envelope is going. And what I want to do is limit the range of these macros to keep it in a musically useful range. And you do that by going into the macro mappings. Here you can see each assigned parameter and a maximum and minimum amount. So for the envelope amount, let's organize these by parameter by clicking on the macro column there. And right here, where it says frequency mod envelope, there you can see filter to frequency to envelope. I want to make this so instead of going all the way down to -16, it only goes down to 0. It's a narrower range, and it's not going to go into the opposite direction, which might make the filter frequency too low. It might get muddy, and it'll just make it a little bit easier to tweak the sound. Let's do the same for filter 1 envelope. And let's check out what we can do with that. As I change these parameters, I'm listening to how the sound is moving, how it's grooving with the rhythm, how it's grooving with the bass and the drums. So I've got the basic sound started, I've got the shape that I want, and I've got an idea of how the sound is moving. You know, I'm automating the shape of the sound with the macros, changing the attack, decay, sustain, release. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, you know, sometimes it's darker, sometimes it's brighter. With the frequency, this is going to be the basic performance element for the sound.
Welcome to DubSpot. We believe in providing you hands-on experience right away. Whether you're completely new to music and want to turn the sounds in your head into a musical reality, or you're an experienced artist looking to refine your skills and add new tools to your arsenal, we're ready to meet you at your level. For students of all ages, all levels, and all styles of music, DubSpot is here to help you achieve your goals. With course offerings both online wherever you are and at our school in the heart of New York City, we are ready to guide you through the next phase of your musical transformation. Whether you want to produce music, DJ, or do both, you've come to the right place. Come explore DubSpot for yourself. Become a part of our community and make music.